Okay, how does the dollar return on your cattle, say, compare to what you could make while using the land for other purposes? If you had a monoculture, for example, if you planted corn, like I'm very curious about the economics of this, because farming is famously a very low margin, high labor enterprise, very difficult enterprise. And so there's a variety of things you can do with land. And obviously many people plant massive monocultures and they use chemicals and they use chemical herbicides. And I'm not a priori critiquing that. You decided to go with cattle and chickens. And what else do you raise?
More than that, we went two things. One, we went multi-species. So we have cows, chickens, both meat and eggs, pigs, lamb, rabbit, duck. So multi-species.
Okay.
All right.
That's for the ponds, the ducks, I presume.
Yeah. I mean, well, it's for eggs and meat. That's a small. We won't do a lot of those. Our main is beef, pork, and chicken. I mean, that's our main. That's our main thing. Rabbit, duck, lamb. Those are all kind of peripheral things. But the other part of this is that we elected to direct market.
Yeah. Okay.
And so remember, Dad was an accountant, and he understood very early on that as a small farm, the commodity margin, in the commodity business, the whole goal is to become the least cost producer.
Yeah, at high scale.
At high scale.
Yeah, right.
Okay?
Right.
And as a small farm, he understood we can't compete at that. So I'm sure you've heard farmers say, well, the middleman makes all the money.
Yeah, of course. Well, that's typical for many enterprises.
Exactly. So he realized, well, in order for us to compete, to actually make a living on this small farm, we need to become a middleman.
Yeah.
We need to own that. So basically, the retail dollar is divided into producer, processor, marketer, distributor. Those four basic.
Say that again. Producer, farmers,
processor, marketer, and distributor.
Right. The marketer is the one who lets everybody know that the products exist, which is very important.
Yes.
And then the last one
is distributor.
Right. Of course.
So it's got to get to the retail interface somehow. Okay. So the retail dollars divided those four ways in different commodities. There are different, rate percentages in each of those four categories, but
and tremendous competition between them.
Yes, tremendous competition. The farmer, there's only one part of that is subject to what I call the four horsemen of the apocalypse, which is weather, price, pestilence, and disease.
Right.
That's production.
Right. So he takes all the risks in the natural world. He takes all the risks.
Yeah. Whereas, when the grasshoppers come, they don't eat the tires on your delivery vehicle. When the drought comes, it doesn't eliminate your Wi-Fi connection to your customers. So these other three, the processing, marketing, and distribution, are relatively immune from weather, price, pestilence,
Well, they're
and
also
disease.
not dependent on any single farmer.
That's right. That's right.
So their risk is distributed.
That's right. So we began when we headed into this, we established a direct marketing persona. Eventually became our brand, Polyface, Polyface, Polyface Farm of Many Faces. That became our brand, and we now sell to restaurants, institutions, boutique groceries. We ship nationwide. We have a farm store. We direct sell into about 35 drop points in the urban sector around Northern Virginia, D.C., Richmond, Virginia Beach, Williamsburg.
And those drop? Tell me about those.
Urban drop points.
Farmers markets or
no?
These are what?
We're not involved in any farmers markets.
Oh, you're not. So
and I'm not opposed to farmers markets.
Yeah.
But I just don't think, in general, they're not a very efficient interface because they're primarily social circles.
Yeah.
They're primarily social clubs.
Relatively low volume, I would presume.
Yeah, because...
So they're like a boutique product.
Yeah, because most of the people who go are there to show their support of local food and assuage their guilt from taking their...
and have a nice day at the farmer's market.
And show off their newly coifed little poodle dog, that they had done.
Right.
And so they can only buy a little baby food jar with a pink ribbon on it of kimchi or some, special thing. They're not buying bushels of green beans or bushels of apples or things. And so we just found farmers markets a very inefficient
How did
retail
you build your
interface.
customer network?
So-
That's work, man.
Yeah, it is. It is. We spend as much time marketing as we do the entire farm production.
Yeah, well, marketing's such a funny enterprise because people, first of all, it's not even named very well because what you're doing when you're a marketer, really what you are is a communicator and
Yes.
a network builder.
Yes.
And, you know, people say things like, well, if you build a better mousetrap, the world will beat a path to your door. And that's a lie.
You're
because
absolutely
It's just
right.
not true
Yeah.
because first of all, it isn't obvious they want a better mousetrap, and they're pretty set in their mousetrap habits. And plus, they don't know your damn mousetrap exists, and they actually don't care. And so, you know, one of the things that shocked me when I started making consumer products, which was like 30 years ago, was, see, because I thought I'd invented this process with my colleagues that help people identify and hire more effective employees. And the first error I made was thinking that large companies actually cared about that, which they don't at all, which is quite a shock. They say they do, but they actually don't when it comes down to it. But more than that, I also realized that if you have something new, that's actually a risk and not an advantage because most people are so risk averse, they won't try anything new. They want to know that many other people are using this and haven't died because of it. And then no one knows your damn product exists. And so I would say for the average enterprise, you tell me what you think about this with regard to your enterprise, the product is 5% of the problem and communication about the product is 90% of the problem. I know that leaves 5% for noise, but like it's exactly the opposite of what most people would think.
That's
Marketing is
That's right.
communication and it really matters. So you guys figured that out.
Messaging is everything. So, and the messaging always has to be in terms of the possible buyer.
Right.
In other words,
Yes.
it's not about you.
No, not
it's
at
about,
all.
It's about their need.
Yeah.
Describing their
What's
need.
their problem?
What's their need? What can I fix for you?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's a hard thing when I'm not like my normal consumer.
Right, definitely.
I have a big garden. I walk out the back door. I've got eggs. I've got cows. I've got
Right.
you know.
So you don't even exist in the landscape where the problem.
Exactly. So for me, I almost have to get into some sort of a yin position or something to okay.
How do I think when I don't have these things?
How do I think like my consumer, like my customer
Very
thinks?
difficult, yeah.
Very, very difficult. But when you can get into that position, you can absolutely message it